Hey guys, so welcome to this video on the AND, OR, and NOT operators in TSQL. In the last video, we had looked at the where clause in TSQL, and if you've not watched that, I'll put a link to it. Or if you don't know how it works, the where clause works, I'll put a link to that video in the top right corner of the screen right now. It's important that you know how it works because it's closely intertwined. The where clause is closely intertwined with the AND, OR, and NOT operators. So basically what the where clause did, just jumping back to the last video, was that it allowed us to specify a condition using which we could extract specific data. So we specified a condition and the SQL Server engine would extract only the data which met that specific condition. And in the last video of the where clause, we had looked at only using one specific condition when filtering our data, but that would not suit the requirements, our practical requirements. So in order to use multiple conditions, that is where these AND, OR, and NOT operators come in. So as the name suggests, using the AND, OR operators, you can filter records based on more than one condition. So the AND operator displays a record if all the conditions separated by the AND keyword are true. That means if all the conditions specified and separated by the AND keyword are met, then that bit of data is returned. Whereas the OR keyword, it displays a record if any of the conditions separated by OR is true. So that basically means that you would have put in a couple of conditions, and if any one of them is true, that data is valid and is returned. So this will become more clear as we look at demos which are coming up. And apart from that, there is the NOT operator. So that is basically, as the name would suggest, it displays a record if the condition is not true. That means if the condition is not met, basically then that data is returned. And it's very simple, similar to the operator which we had seen in the last video, which was the less than or greater than sign, which is also the not equals to operator. So it's very similar to that. So let's now just jump in and set up the demo environment. As you can see, I'm using Azure SQL Studio, and this is the tool that you need to use, SQL Server on Mac. So I've got, for those on Mac who don't have this tool, I've got an installation guide and I'll link to it in the top right corner of the screen. For those on Windows, I've got another installation guide to help you install SQL Server Management Studio. If you haven't already, I'll put a link to that in the top right hand corner of the screen. And basically the most important thing is that there isn't any difference between the two. It's the same SQL syntax and logic and everything, and the output would also be the same if it's run on both. It's just that the UI looks a bit different. So don't be worried about that. If you are on Windows, it's just the same thing with a bit of a different UI. And then coming to the sample data, I've created a GitHub repository with two files. One is a and or not demo.sql, which will basically have all the queries that I'm showing you during this demo. So if you want to just copy those queries down rather than type them out, you can check out that file. But more importantly, for now, I've got this table setup.sql. And in that, I've just created a table and got some mock data that you can practice upon alongside this video if you want to. So let's first copy the create sample data, the create table statement. Once that's run successfully, I'll just copy the insert data statement. I've got 100 lines of 100 rows of data, so it's a lot to copy. You can just copy that and paste it in and run. So yeah, we've got all the data inserted. So now we can clear the code space. So now just to show you the data, I'll just select star from sample data and run. So this is what the table looks like. We've got an ID, a first name, last name, email, gender, IP address, age, country, credit card provider, and a currency. So now coming to our demo, So first I want to talk to you about the AND statement, and I'll just put the syntax up on the screen. So it's similar to the where condition, and it's just that the separate conditions are separated by an AND keyword, as you can see in the syntax here. So now let's look at an example of that. So let's keep it simple. So say we want to return all males who are above the age of 30. So then we can put the first condition as male, so gender equals to single quotes male. So don't forget that single quote, because that's as we had specified in the last video, that's important. Then we put an AND keyword, and then we add the second condition, which was age greater than 30. So as you can see, we've got the first condition, gender equals to male, and the second condition, an age greater than 30. If you want to know why male has single quotes around it and 30 doesn't, you can check out our last video. But basically we've got the two conditions separated by the AND keyword, and basically what happens here is the data that is going to be returned has to satisfy both these criteria. That is, the gender has to be male and the age has to be 30. So let's see if that works out. So here if you look at the gender column, it's all male, and then the age column, it's all ages above 30. So we can see that the query has worked. So now let's just have a look at the OR statement then, and look at its syntax, the OR operator. So it's very similar to the AND condition, it's just that the conditions are separated by the OR keyword instead. And so let's just check that out with a demo. So here I'm just going to keep it simple and change this AND keyword to OR. And what that does is, now in the previous, when we use the AND keyword, both each row of data that returned satisfied both these criterions. But now using the OR keyword, they just have to satisfy any one. So let's just run and see. So immediately when we look at then gender and age, there are female, agenders, non-binaries in the gender column, and there are also ages below the ages below 30. So you can see 25 here, you can see 15. But if say we look at an agender, whenever we look at a gender that does not match male, you would see that the age would always be greater than 30, and likewise if the age was less than 30, the gender would always be male. So basically what the OR does is it returns data where either of the statements are satisfied. Now let's look at the NOT operator. So NOT is again very similar to the not equal to operator which we had seen in the last video. In the last video we had specified like this. We had done a less than or greater than between the column name and the value. But here what we would do is we would write where not gender equals to male. So everywhere that gender is equal to male won't be shown, because that is true. This statement returns all the data that is not true in that gender equals to male scenario. So it's everybody other than males are returned using this query with the NOT operator. So that is basically a look at the three AND or NOT operators and keywords. That was just a basic overview, but now where it gets interesting is when we start combining these. So there's basically a whole load of compound statements that we can create which contain both AND, OR, and NOT, or contains all three. So let's just look at some of them. So the first one I've got lined up for you is select star where not gender equal to male. So far it's the same as the last query we had written, and age greater than 50. So here we've got where not gender equal to male and age greater than 50. So just in your mind try and think what would happen here. So let's run it and see. Basically that's the best way you can learn. You can just put in conditions and throw around the operators and run them and see what the data returns, and then sort of work your way back and see how the logic happened. So here we can see that there have been no males returned because it's an AND statement, and also the ages are all above 50. So what we can deduce from that is that both conditions have to be satisfied, which is basically what we had learned with the AND keyword, which is all the data that is returned, the ages will be greater than 50 and the not gender is equal to male, which means the opposite of gender equals to male has to be returned. So wherever this condition is not satisfied will be returned because we've used the not keyword there. So that was one example. And suppose we switch around the not. We move the not from here to and not age greater than 50 and run this again. So here what we can see is when we break down the statement into the two conditions that are on either side of the AND keyword, gender is equal to male. So that means all the data returned will have the gender as male, and not age greater than 50 is the second condition, which means that the opposite scenario of age greater than 50 will be returned. So that is basically everybody who is 50 and younger, they will be returned, who are also male because of the AND keyword. So that is a compound usage. So now let's look at another example, and now let's look at one where we use 3 instances of the AND keyword. So suppose we have where gender equals to male and age greater than, let's say 30, yeah, and then we can do as many as you want. So just to show you that, we can do AND currency equals to CNY, which is I think the Chinese currency. So yeah, here we've got data return that satisfied all these conditions. They're all males, their ages are all above 30, and their currency is all CNY. And similarly you can do that with the OR keyword as well, or so here basically we've got 3 conditions, and when we use the OR keyword between them, it would be only the data return would need to satisfy only one of these conditions. They could satisfy 2 or all 3, but the minimum criteria is that they have to at least satisfy 1. So let's run it. So here you can see we've got data wherein either the gender is male, or the age is greater than 30, or the currency is CNY. They can satisfy more than one condition, but at minimum they have to satisfy one condition when we use the OR keyword between all the specified conditions. Alright, so that was looking at data which had different types of 3 conditions specified. So now let's sort of just throw it around, mix it up, and we use one AND and one OR. So let's run this now. So here let's look at what happens. So here when we try and work our way back from the logic, we see that either the currency is CNY. So I think it's easiest to look at it from the OR statement's perspective. So we split the statement from the OR to two sub conditions. So on one side of the OR is the currency is the Chinese currency. So you can see that we've got a lot of Chinese currency, and where the currency is not the Chinese currency, we can see that the gender will be male and the age will be greater than 30. So this OR basically splits the statement into 2 sub conditions. One is that the currency is CNY, and one is that the gender has to be male and the age has to be 30. So this would be viewed as one condition, and again then you can break it down further, and then that condition to satisfy that sum condition, the gender has to be male and the age has to be 30. So it's quite interesting. You can just play around with it and see. So suppose we switch around the or and the and. On this. So here again, following the steps, we break it with the or. On one side of the or is the condition gender equals to male. So we can see gender is equal to male, and where gender is not equal to male, that's where the other condition would have to be satisfied, which is age greater than 30 and currency CNY. So you can see this first female, her age is greater than 30 and her currency is CNY. So like I said, just sort of use the or and try and subdivide the conditions and work out your logic from there. And the easiest way is to just practice and get this, get a firm hand on this, and you can just play around with the and, or, and not to work your way back from and fully understand how this works. So thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and help us please YouTube's algorithm so we can continue making videos like these. Thank you guys.